Your neighbor tells you about the unstable man in the cul-de-sac who claims to have been abducted by aliens. And then there's the woman in town who claims to see Bigfoot all the time. Your boss, who you greatly admire, confides in you that he has started speaking with his wife daily when he gets home from work. She died 8 years ago. It's hard to believe this stuff, and you write these stories off as overactive imaginations. Are these people seeking attention, or are they a bit unstable? No matter what you think, if you're like me, you walk away wondering, what if that was true? The What If It's True podcast features stories by ordinary people like you and me. Something has happened to them, something so strange they are in agony unless they tell others. My name is Cameron Buckner, and the What If It's True podcast is available at whatifitstruepodcast.com and on all available podcast apps.
Welcome to Beast TV. What was that? You better get a fresh dip and buckle up. Welcome to Beast TV. It is great to be back. And before we get started, we had one of our faithful listeners, Tracy Stanley, to lose her mom and early this morning. So we want to send out our thoughts and prayers to Tracy. And Larry, it's good to see that you made it back from vacation.
Man, it's been a long vacation. I don't even know if I can do this. I don't know if the mic's working, the headphones.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I was kind of having to rehearse, the different video feeds I've got to pull up and make sure I was going to have the right one, or it's liable to be late night with Bama.
Yeah, I hear you. I told my buddies when I went back to work Tuesday from vacation, I told my buddies, I said, well, I spent a couple of grand to be told I'm too fat to ride a horse and too fat to zip line. Oh, so sad.
Oh,
but the kids enjoyed it and Debbie enjoyed it, so I just had to watch.
You could have got that mistreatment at home.
That's right. Fat Larry's don't ever say nothing about me being too fat.
Yeah. There's not a weight capacity on those chairs.
That's right.
I'm going to tell you, it is always good to have a friend on our show and somebody that you respect, someone that you look to as a mentor. And this guy really should have his own podcast because there are certain people that are able to articulate and paint a picture in great detail and really put you there. And y'all will notice tonight that when he's telling his experiences, you can tell that he is reliving them as he's telling them. And so why don't you let's get this thing going. Why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest?
Sounds good. We met him in person a couple of weeks ago at the meet and eat. Cam Buckner and I were standing at a fire, and Greg came up and started telling Cam one of his stories about taking somebody hunting. I said, we got to have this dude on. That was an amazing story. So we got Greg on with us tonight.
Welcome, Greg.
Hey guys, man, y'all built me up a little too much. I was looking around and thought there's somebody else here that was going to be on.
That's a good characteristic trait when you're humble.
Oh, mate. Well, guys, I appreciate y'all having me.
Greg, let's just start off. You can introduce yourself, tell a little bit about yourself. You can talk about hobbies or family or just whatever you would like to.
Okay. Guys, avid outdoorsman. I grew up in the woods in North Alabama. I've spent my whole life. Mom and dad had a farm, grew up farm life, and just, we hunted, fished, trapped. We've done a little bit of everything. That's the way pretty much dad brought us up, and we've done all kind of stuff to make a living, as far as raised cattle, had poultry farm, raised goats, had greenhouses. We've done a little bit of everything. Dad was a commercial fisherman. When I was in elementary school, he'd come get me out after school, and we'd go run boxes on the river or in the lake here local. And he sold fish. And then later on in years, Dad was a charter boat captain out at Gulf Shores. Done that for about 14 years, and just grew up outdoors, just hunting, fishing, shooting guns, about anything you could think of. Now I own a business and work for myself and stay busy. I work way more than I want to. I've been married for 25 and a half years, same woman. A lot of people say they've been married that long, just not the same person.
That's right.
But I've got 2 children. My son just turned 16 yesterday. My little girl, she turned 10 April 11th. So I stay busy. I mean, it's always something. Like I tell everybody, I was born to hunt and fish and forced to work.
I understand that. Definitely. So what was your first experience with Bigfoot, or what turned your attention toward Bigfoot?
Well, as I've told others, guys, I didn't go out looking for these things. I always had a curiosity about it, and grew up in the woods. When you're a kid, I was born 1974. I'm 48 years old. Back then, you'd see stuff, on TV, Patterson Gimlin. I'd read books as a kid, and I didn't doubt. I ain't gonna say I didn't doubt it. I had a belief that there was Bigfoot by what I'd read and what I'd seen, but I thought, man, them things are out in Washington State, Colorado. I'm in North Alabama. That was a long way from anywhere that I thought I'd ever have any kind of dealings with these things. And I didn't go out. A lot of folks have incidents, have a sighting, whatever. They're out looking for them. I accidentally got drug off into this. I mean, I was doing my thing like I always have, hunting, and they just kind of snuck up on us. We wound up. I guess I can just dive off into it. My cousin, they owned a lumber mill, and his dad, during the Depression and before, they had a sawmill, and his dad had bought acres and acres of timber. And where I'm at in North Alabama, the land's, what you can farm is farmed, and the rest of it's just holding good stuff together. And it was just timber. Well, back then, he would buy the property and then cut the timber off of it as cheap as he could just buy the timber. So he acquired hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres of land. Well, then after he passed away, my cousin him and his sister inherited the sawmill, and they inherited a bunch of land. So he had land scattered all over North Alabama. And I hit him up about a piece of property that he had. It was a 40-acre tract, small piece of property, but it was surrounded by U.S. Forest Service land. And the land had been clear cut, And I'm talking about they scalped it. They was nothing. They just a few little trees here and there. But it had been a few years before I hit him up about it. And I knew it was down this dead end road, a government road. And it just dead ends. And it's between a mile and a half from a main road. And I hit him up one day about it. I said, hey, why don't you lease me? I said, you still got that 40 acres down there? Yeah, I still got it. I said, well, why don't you let me and Daddy just lease it from me? He said, well, I'll do better than that. He said, why don't y'all just go down there and you just do what you want to on it? I don't care. He said, it's a growed up mess. I said, well, I know it is. I was in there last year and kind of went around the outskirts of it, hunting some of the government land. I said, but I'd really like to take Daddy's dozer down there and build a couple of green fields and push the old log roads out. He said, look, you go do what you want to, treat it like it's yours. So, hey, green light, I'm ready to go. We told Dad, I said, look, why don't we'll go set this up, me and you, and then my wife, she's an avid hunter too, guys. She kills a pile of deer. But anyway, I told him, I said, look, me and you can hunt it, want to hunt with us, we'll go hunt that. So we carried his dozer. I spent the better part of a week down there pushing the old log roads out, and there was still a road that went in there had been a gate, and I wound up had to put it back, so I made it tore it down. But anyway, I put a gate back up, and it was a big, like the old cathead rock, the big limestone rock about that big that went out about 200 yards, and there was a bedding area where they had the knuckle boom loading their logs as they drug them up there. And I built a green field there. And when I first built it, that field was probably 1.5 acres, somewhere in there. But at the gate, you went to the left and you went out, it was flat going out to where that bedding area was. But at the gate, the road, you went straight out to that field and you went to the right, and as soon as you went to the right, it went down this big hill. And we're talking probably a 35% grade. I mean, it was sloping hard. And you went about 200 yards and it kind of flattened out again. And I found a spot down there to build a smaller grain field. It was probably 3/4 of an acre, maybe. But it was down on this bottom corner of the property. And the other field was kind of on the opposite corners of this property. So they were, several hundred yards apart. And at that time, where everything had grown back up, because he didn't replant it when they cut it, it was just whatever was there came back up. And you couldn't see in it, 12 inches, and especially in the summertime, because it was just like a wall of green.
Yeah.
And this stuff was on up at that time, probably 6, 7, 8 foot high. And I made a road where I could go in, whether if I went to the left or if I went to the right, I could go, like if I went in and went to the right, I could go down the hill through that green field. And then about halfway through the green field, the road kind of peeled off to the left a little bit, but it continued on and it dropped down another little slope and right at the bank of the river. And I'm going to call it a river. It's a big, big creek that's part of the tributaries or the backwater of a large lake here. Well, anyway, I could go down and get within, say, 25, 30 feet of the water. And I made a road that just snaked around the river. And then it went around nearly to the other property line, which was nearly 1/4 mile, because this was a square 40 acres. I could go around the bank of the lake, and it was down there, they left a buffer zone. So there was some hardwoods right by the lake, and then it went up the hill, and it would average probably anywhere from 100 yards to 150 yards up that slope to where it leveled out up on the higher part of the property. So all that slope, on account of the runoff and erosion, they left all the timber. So once you went through the hardwoods from the water, then you hit the clear cut that had now grown up. But anyway, I had a road that I built that went all the way around the property, and you just made a big loop. Well, we got everything set up, and we planted the fields. Man, deer tracks, if I had took my hat off, closed my eyes, stood anywhere in that field and just tossed my hat, if you wouldn't pick that hat up, there'd be at least 3 deer tracks under it. They was mowing that grass down. And before season, we was pouring out corn for them. And back then it was illegal. Of course, you couldn't bait for everything, had to be up 10 days before season. Yeah. So we had everything ready and we were excited. I mean, excited about hunting this property. Man, we was finding, huge buck tracks. And of course, that was long before I even thought about or anybody probably made a game camera. We were just going based off of what we were seeing track wise. Well, we went in there to hunt, and first day of bow season, we go in there to hunt. And then used to here, the county I'm in Alabama, it was October 15th. Dad and I go in. I park outside the gate because the old gate I put up was a old cattle gate, and it was squeaky and make racket. Oh my word, it was horrible. But anyway, we just park outside the gate, walk around the gate, and he was going to the upper field, and then we had the lower field. I said, "You go hunt it. I'm gonna go down here by the river. I'll hunt this lower field. I'll see you at dark." Well, he goes in. He's up there, and dude, it's been quiet. I ain't seen nothing. I ain't heard nothing, and I'm kind of let down a little bit because I'm excited. There's a lot of track, a lot of deer sign. We're gonna see some deer. I sat in there that evening, and about, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes before it got black dark where you couldn't shoot, I'm sitting there, and I'm facing the stand is on the north end of the field, like where the road came into it. The road coming in is on my right, and I'm facing toward the river. I can't see the river, but the field goes just sloping down gradually, and then goes off the hill to the river, and it's only probably maybe 70 yards from there to the water. I'm sitting there in the stand, and it's whisper quiet, and out of the blue, right out the end of that field toward the river, just a little to the right, the world explodes. It sounds like Babe Ruth is down there with a bat trying to break it. And it had to be a beech tree, something with tight bark on it, because it wasn't like something that hit a pine or a hickory where it's got big, thick bark. This was like wood to wood, just bow, 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 and it hit 3 times. Well, first thing pops in my mind is, what is this moron doing? Look, there's somebody just out of the end of my field, and there's some idiot beating on a tree. And I'm upset. I'm not happy by a long way. And I can't figure out what's going on. And I sit there just a couple of minutes, and I thought, well, my hunt's done. This idiot's just right here out of the end of the field, can't be over 25, 30 yards. And I sit there and I listen. I don't hear anything. I thought, well, somebody's going to make some racket. But I'm also thinking, I didn't hear anybody come in there. And, this is fall of the year. The leaves really hadn't fell at that time. But still, out in the woods, it was dry. And you should have heard somebody, I would have thought, walking. Well, I sit there a few more minutes, and I'm in this ladder stand. My feet's like 15 feet off the ground. I get my bow, clip it on, let it down the tree with a rope. Climb down, and I get my stuff and walk back out. And I walk the 200 yards back to the truck. Well, when I get to the truck, Dad's at the truck. I said, "You see anything?" He said, "No." He said, "Did you?" I said, "No, I didn't see nothing." He said, "Well, all that racket down there, I don't know how you thought you was going to see anything." I said, "Did you hear that?" And he said, "Yeah, I heard it." He said, "What in the world was you beating on down there?" I said, "I wasn't beating on nothing." I said, "There's some moron down here." Undoubtedly, the road where the gate was, the road actually went on down between 1/8 and 1/4 of a mile, and it went off to the river, and it was like a little camp spot. I said, undoubtedly somebody's down here on this government land, but they got over on us by a little bit, and I don't know what they were doing. They were down there beating on a tree just out from the field. Well, we got in the truck, and I backed my 4-wheel drive up, and I started going that way on past it. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm fixing to go down here and have a talk with somebody." He said, "What?" I said, "Look, somebody's down here, and I don't appreciate them. They're over on across the property line by at least 50, 60 yards. They have to be, because the property line was really close to this field, but it was on kind of the right, and this was more straight. So I thought somebody had come in there maybe off the government land and just got over on us. But still, they were right at prime time to kill a deer. They're down here beating on a tree." We drive down this road and go off the hill. And we get down where I can see the bottom of the turnaround where the road is dead end. You're going to get wet. You're going to drive into the river. And there's no vehicle. There's nothing. We didn't hear a boat come in. Didn't hear a boat leave. there's no vehicle down here. And, you know, by the end of this road, we're at least 1.5 miles from the main road. And me and Dad both, I know, had a puzzled look, like, what, you know, how did somebody get in here? Where did they come from? And what were they doing? We just, you know, puzzled about it. We went ahead and left. And that's kind of where it started, guys. That was the first thing I ever heard, but it was one just, he had to be, from where I was at, he was less than 100 yards. He was less than 300 feet from where I was sitting, and this thing was beating on a tree. And I'm talking about, guys, it sounded like you had 2 8-foot 2x12s, kill-dried lumber, just kapow, and then kapow, and then kapow. I mean, it sounded like you should have splintered, like it should have been splintering the wood when it hit. It was so loud.
Yeah.
With these, well, let me put it this way. How many incidents happened before you started putting 2 and 2 together?
Well, a lot, a bunch of encounters. And I started picking up on, I had kind of an idea that, hey, this may be what this is. But I couldn't see anything definite. I dang sure couldn't see it. I mean, I got to where it was the first year, that, like I said, that was the very first thing we ever had. That was it. We couldn't figure it out. Well, then it would go from there to, we'd hear something come in walking bipedal, and it would circle the field and it would whistle. It would be a monotone whistle. And I'm talking about horrendously loud. And it would be a short, crisp whistle. And as it would come through the woods where you couldn't see it, and then it would come through that thicket, and you could hear it walking bipedal, going through that cutover and breaking limbs, and it wouldn't slow down. It was just like it was just steadily moving, crunching stuff, breaking limbs, breaking saplings. And it may go 150, 200 yards, and it would stop. And it may stay there a couple, 3 minutes, and then you could hear it go again. And it would just go and go and go. And they would come in, and one of the other most prevalent things we'd hear would be a whoop, like WHOOP, whoop. And it would be, dude, I'm talking about loud. It would be like whoop. And then you'd hear that, and then it may be a couple of minutes, 30 seconds. You'd hear it again, and then you may or may not hear it further off. And it would whoop like another one whoop back. And back on the tree knocking, a lot of times on the tree knock, you would have a tree knock really close. And when I say really close, I'm talking about 200 yards or less. And I've had these things tree knock within 50 yards of me. But when that thing, whichever one was close to you, most time that's the one you heard first. When that thing would knock, it wouldn't be long. You could hear another knock, answer. And 95% of the time, the first tree knock you heard would be 3. It would knock 3 times. And it was just like what I done a while ago. It would be a knock, a pause, a knock, a pause, and it would do it 3 times. 95% of the time, the answer that you would hear from a pretty long distance away would be 2 knocks. And it, that being further away, it was more of a thump, thump. But most of the time when you heard a knock, if you listen, it may be a quarter of a mile sound like, and it may be a half a mile sound like, but it would be a long distance off. You would hear a reply. But we just kept trying to put things together, and just things that didn't make sense. And it was like, well, why is this happening? And, and like I said, we got to noticing one of the other things, and this took us a few years to really pick up on it. We could go hunt this property, and we would have deer. I'm talking about, I've sat in a stand on that upper field and had 23 deer was the most I ever had. Now, I'd enlarged the field. It was a little over 2 acres this time. But I had like 23 or 24 deer in the field at one time. I could count them, all of them in the field. The grass would look like you had mowed it with a lawnmower. The grass would be eat down. And I mean, nearly the point the deer looked like they were going to kill the grass. you wouldn't have anything crazy go on. Nothing. I mean, you go over there, it's just like anywhere else I've ever hunted in my life. It was fine. Nothing crazy out of the way. You could keep going to those fields, and you'd start noticing that all the fresh deer tracks were now old deer tracks. Nothing fresh. You'd notice that the green field, the grass was getting taller and taller and taller. Well, if you kept hunting it for a few more days, you'd know why. Because you'd have these things come in, circle the field. I've had them come in behind me. They'd come in, circle the field. Most of the time they'd get downwind of you. Wherever they got, where it was downwind of where you were at, they'd stop. And they'd sit there. And then sometimes they'd just ease back off. Sometimes they'd get belligerent. You never knew what they were going to do. And that's another whole nother scenario that I had to try to figure out. And I still don't know on that part. I couldn't figure out if it was the same one. I couldn't figure out if he was having a bad day. I don't know if it was maybe the part of the troop was close. Maybe some young ones was there at certain times. Dude, I've had these things follow me out of the woods dozens and dozens of times. I'm talking about follow me out of the stand. I'd come out. They'd walk with you. They'd be over in the thicket, and they would pace you out. You could walk, they'll walk. You stop, they're going to stop. But they'd follow you out. Sometimes that's all they'd do. They'd never do anything. They'd just follow you. But you could trip them up. As long as you walk, they'll walk. And if you just stop, you'll hear them step. My son, he's leaving, going home. He's been hanging out with me. But anyway, these things would they'd pace you out. And y'all, I've had them be belligerent. I'm talking about you'd actually wonder, am I going to make it back to the truck? You know, is this thing going to cut me off? It's acting crazy today. I just had a dealing with it 3 days ago. It was fine. Today it's like, hey, I may not make it back. You just didn't know what they were going to do. And I don't know if it was the same one having good days and bad days, or if it was a different one of the troop, that this one's a tail hole and this one's friendly. I don't know. I still don't know.
Yeah. Do you think it had anything to do with you making a honey hole for the deer, and that was their hunting ground that they wanted to take over and you were infringing on it?
Well, guys, I've pondered that, and by the grace of the good Lord, he put me in touch with some guys that I've made very good friends with, and I look at like brothers, and y'all know them, Troy Allen, Coonbo Baker, Cheryl Corntassel. I couldn't hit a super lotto and got hooked up with the group of guys that I look at as brothers. I mean, the Lord put them in my life, and that answered a lot of questions, lots of questions. I really think that by discussing with and Jimmy Osmer, I can't leave Jimmy Osmer and Nate Boland, I ain't leave them out.
Yeah.
But guys, I really think that had probably a lot to do with it. I think that maybe kind of what we've stuck together, that maybe these things had possibly, that may have been a bedding area for them, that 40 acres. It was all grown up. Nobody was using it. You had a river right there on the south side. You had all this government, big timberland around it. I mean, basically, as far as a human being, before I took that dozer in there, that stuff was impenetrable. You wasn't going to get in it. It was horrible to go in and out of. Well, I think I kind of busted up in maybe their front porch, or maybe in their living room. I don't know. But guys, it ramped up slowly. And that's what Troy Allen and I talk every day, me and Coonbo, every day, every other day, maybe. I really think that these things, when we first came in there, they were kind of standoffish. We didn't have a lot of belligerent things. It was, we'd hear them whoop, we'd hear them whistle, we'd hear them grunt, growl, huff. That was about the most severe thing for the first 2 years. 2 winters we hunted it. That was about it. They would follow us out. By going on into about the 3rd year, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, guys, it got to the point where I would go down there and they would do things to where I didn't know if I was going to get back out of them woods. And it wasn't just me by myself. I had my buddy Alan with me. My dad was there. Dad had things happen to him. I lost Dad last year to cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And but guys, Alan, he's been with me through the thick and the thin, guys. When you have a buddy that'll go in the woods with you, and you and him both go, hey, we may have to shoot our way back to the truck. That's a whole different outlook than normal. Hey, let's go see if we can kill a deer.
Right.
We've me and him's both been bluff charged. We've been followed out of the woods. Your whole world will change when one of these things bluff charge you. I don't care who you are. I don't care. You can be the baddest mamma jamma on the planet. when you come out of a tree stand, hit the ground, and you have something sounds like a Brahma, the size of a Brahma bull, come from 150 yards crashing through the thicket, and you whirl and run. I ain't no speed demon. Don't get me wrong. I ain't no speed demon. But when I hit the ground and whirled and broke running to get out into the open field, I had to traverse about 20 feet to get into the field, into this 2.5 acre so field. Guys, I hit the ground, and let me just back up. I've told this for Nate and Jack Overkirch, but let me just back up. I was in the upper field. And I went down there and I was by myself. Didn't have Dad, couldn't go hunting. He works in Birmingham. I was in the upper field by myself. And our cardinal rule at this point in time was you don't stay in the woods till it gets black dark. By the time it gets dark, you need to be at in the truck, backing up to leave. We're not going to stay till pitch black dark. These things really don't want to come out in the daylight. I can tell you that for fact. But anyway, I was in the upper field, and the stand was on the opposite side of the field. Behind the stand was about 150 yards of this growed up cutover that I was telling you about. And it's just any kind of, name what you want to, there's that kind of sapling in this stuff. It's just growed up, just woven up mess. Well, on that side of the field, the reason the wind was kind of in the favor of the field, because most of our wind, of course, is out of the north in the wintertime. That put the stand on the south side to where if something come out in the field, it wasn't going to wind you. So you walked from the gate, you went 200 yards out, and it was this big Cathead Rock Road. And then it was this bedding ground where I made the field, and you crossed about, say, 50 or so yards of the field. And then when you hit the wood line, just to the right of the stand was the road, kept on going, made the loop I told you about. All right, about 30 yards to the left of that road was this stand, and instead of the stand sitting right out in the field, it was backed up about 20 feet. So you're not just like a sore thumb sticking out here for all the deer to look at you. Well, normally I would take a cement rake and I would rake the leaves out a little narrow path, the 20 feet to the bottom of the big metal ladder stand, and it was 15 foot to your feet. Well, I put it there because when they cut the timber, they had left just like 3 or 4 little old trees, and when they cut it, I guess, they were maybe so big. So by the time we were there, these trees were on up, 5-gallon bucket size, but they were heavy enough that they would hold the ladder stand. Well, guys, I'm in this ladder stand, and I'd been there since, 2:30 that day. I'm sitting up in there, and I hunt with a Browning semi-automatic 30-06. And on about this time, I've been dealing with these things and so on and so forth. So I keep the butt of the rifle sitting on my leg here, and I kept the forearm leaning on the shooting rail in front of the stand. Well, I'm sitting there, and I get to hearing over my shoulder right straight behind me toward the river. And like I said, behind this stand is just this thicket, and it goes about 150 yards of that thicket. And then when it hits the crown of the hill to go off this big long hill down to the river, it's hardwood. Well, I hear something walking behind me, and it's popping a limb here and there, and I can hear it crunching leaves, and it's like I've got it on a rope, like I'm just pulling it, and it's coming to my stand. Well, I hear this thing getting closer and closer and closer, and I've got a lump in my throat and a slow sinking feeling, and I ease and stand up. Well, I'm looking, the tree it's on is I'm like leaning, looking around it. And I'm holding my rifle pointing up, and I'm looking around this tree into this thicket behind me. The thing comes up, I'd say within 20, 25 yards. And I'm leaning around the tree looking, and I can't see it. I know, hey, it's right there. I can hear it. It's right there. Well, the thing goes to my left, and it goes around the field. Well, the field going the way I'm facing, I'm still looking where it's at. I can see where it's at in the thicket. The thing goes around the end of the field, and it's probably 30, 35 yards. I'm guessing it's 35, 40 yards to the end of the field, and it turns, and then the field goes like 200 yards around that corner. It goes 200 yards, kind of going behind me now. This thing walks, and it's going around, and when I see it go around or can tell where it's at in the bushes, and it can hear it, it makes the corner. Well, that day the wind is blowing toward that side. The thing makes the corner. And the way I can tell where it's at, because I'm in this 15 foot to my feet. I'm 6'1". That puts my eyes, say, 20 foot high. The grow up out there is about 10, 11 feet guessing. It's not as high as the platform of the stand. So I'm looking out through this, and there's a lot of pine saplings, small pine trees over on that part of the property that sprung back up in the cutover. This thing is about 20 or 30 feet outside the field. I can say green grass, then the wood line, the thicket starts. Well, it's like looking over top of a cornfield. You're seeing all this brush sticking up, and it's like looking, like tall, like sage grass, but it's all bushes and trees and saplings. I can hear this thing walking around the field. I can also see the tops of these bushes. They had spread out, and then they'd whoop back. And then I could, as it was moving, it was kind of like a fish swimming like right at the top of the water, and you're seeing the water part. I'm watching the bushes spread apart and the saplings, and they'd spring back together. Well, this thing, it would go a little bit and it would stop. It would go a little bit and it would stop. Well, it gets over there, and I'm sitting there thinking, the wind is going right there. I kid you not, that thing goes, after it made the corner, it started up the line going kind of back toward where my truck was. That thing's going up through there. And it goes probably 30, 40 yards, about where the wind hit me is going to where it's at. And that thing stops. And I hear it. It goes, That's when I really did have a problem swallowing. That thing stands there, and it sits there just a minute, and everything's quiet. Well, then I hear, like it was disgusted, like, starts walking, goes right back where it just went. It's retracing its steps. It goes back, comes around the corner of the field, comes right back up that line. It's just out of the field, over in the thicket, and it's coming straight at me. And then before it gets to where I can see it, it turns. Goes right back around, sound like it was in the same footprints where I just heard it, 10, 15 minutes before. The thing turns, and it goes straight away from me, right where it came from, right back toward the river. I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh, please, just go on. You look, I don't want to bother you. You just need to go on. The thing goes on, and I hear it, and I'm thinking, okay, it's went out of the thicket. It's hit them hardwoods. It's went over the hill. I can't hear it anymore. It's gone. Y'all, I sit there for several minutes. I don't know how long. This wasn't no long time before dark when this happened, when it first came in. But time's getting short. I'm running out of daylight. And I sit there, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. I'm not going to stay till pitch black dark. I've got to get down. And I'm weighing my options of how long do I stay. And I really need to be gone. I'd feel a whole lot better in the cab of my truck than I would up here in the stand. So I'm sitting there, and on all my stands for safety, my whole life since I've been old enough to hunt, Dad was a stickler. He's like, look, you pull that bolt back on that rifle, you take that shell out of the chamber, you don't climb with a gun. You look, we ain't gonna get killed by accident. We ain't gonna have you kill yourself or somebody else. Pull the bolt back on it, lock the bolt open, have the shell in your hand, put it in your pocket, tie it off on a rope. You climb the stand, pull your gun up, untie it, put the shell back in it, rechamber it, you're good to go. Guys, I could not make myself tie that rifle to that tree stand to lower it down. I couldn't make myself unload that gun. I'm sitting here like, look, I'm going to be extra careful. I'm not tying my gun to a tree stand. So I finally decide I've got to get down. It's getting dark. It's getting really dim. I need to be gone. Well, out in the field, I had some ambient light, a little bit. I could still see across the field. I could still see it 200 yards. Now it's dim, but I can see it. But by the time I start down, all around my stand in this thicket, dude, it's done got pretty bad dark. It's there ain't no light in there under this canopy, all these bushes and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm not turning my light on. I do not want to turn my light on. I don't want to draw any more attention to myself than I had to. So I turn around and I lay my gun up and I get on the ladder and I reach back up on the stand and I get my rifle. So I've got it with one hand. I'm climbing with one hand and climbing down. And I'm having to go slow because anybody's ever hunted out of a metal ladder stand where they pin together, it'll squeak and pop. And y'all, I am praying to the good Lord, let me hit the ground as silent as possible. Well, I get down, I ain't made no racket. I've got my rifle, I'm holding it, it's pointing straight up, fingers away from the trigger. I get to the last step. I'm this far from the ground. It hits me like the whole world ended, like a ton of bricks. I realized that year I got really tied up, and what I had not done was brought my cement rake and cleared my little narrow path from the stand 20 feet to the field. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? I've got dried leaves. They're that deep. When I step off this last metal stand rung right here, it's going to make noise. And y'all, I sit there and I'm trying to plot and plan anything I can do to where I can step off that stand. It ain't going to make racket and I can't come up with nothing. I have no idea what I'm about to do. Guys, I stepped off and I sit there and I listen and I listen and I listen. And look, where I'm holding the ladder, well, actually holding the ladder like this because I still got my rifle up, but I'm holding the ladder. I'm looking, through between the steps of the ladder. The tree is like maybe 8 feet that I'm climbed. And the last time I heard this thing, it was right past that tree that my ladder's on. And I know it's 150 yards the last time I heard it. I ain't heard nothing. I thought, well, I've got to go. I can't wait anymore. Guys, when my foot hit those leaves and it crunched right straight the way the last place I heard that thing, it sounded like the whole world exploded. I'm talking about if you had locked the throttle on a Polaris 500 and could delete the motor noise and turned it loose and it just crashing coming through that thicket. Guys, it was horrible coming straight at me. And it wasn't doing it slow. I'm talking about this thing is coming and it's coming hard. Guys, I whirled and run. And I run that 20 feet out into the field. And I run on out in the field. I hear this thing behind me. I can hear it coming. And I am running for all I've got. I run out in this field about, we'll say 20 yards. It wasn't no long way. And I can hear this thing is done gaining on me. And I'm talking about fast. Guys, I plant my left foot. I spin around and I level this Browning rifle. I've thrown the safety off and got my finger straight beside the trigger. I'm looking beside the scope because it's done got really dark in the woods and I can still see out in the grass. When I plant and I'm like leaned into the rifle, all I had to do was curl my finger and was going to have a 165 grain 30-06 streaming that way. And I had 4 more right behind it as fast as I could pull the trigger. Guys, that thing stopped. It was like you slammed the brakes on, just bow. And it was not happy. And where this thing had stopped, it had run directly behind the tree that my stand was on. It run straight to that tree as it could go. Guys, it was crashing. It was breaking. It sounded like saplings big as my forearm. Like they were exploding. That thing run right up there. And it started throwing a fit. I'm talking about a temper tantrum. That thing would huff. It would growl. almost kind of like a bark. I don't know how to tell you. But that thing, it'd go, and I can't even do it justice. And guys, so help me, that thing sounded like you've seen the old movies where a gorilla would beat its chest. That thing sounded just like it was beating its chest. And it would pace back and forth, and it would grumble and growl and carry on. And it was popping limbs. And guys, I'm like this. I'm holding that rifle, and I'm looking all around me, and I'm backing up, and I'm trying to get a little distance from it. I can't see anything to shoot at. It's black. It's like looking into a abyss because it's 20 or so feet into this thicket. I know where it's at. It's right there at my stand, but I can't do nothing about it. And the sinking feeling that I had at this point was, okay, is there another one? Is there one coming behind me off to the side? Am I fixing to get steamrolled in this field from something I ain't seen? And I back up, and I'm looking all around. My head's on a swivel, and this thing's throwing a fit. And going crazy right here. It's right in front of me, having a come apart fit. I back up, and I'm getting closer to this Cathead Rock Road that's going to the truck. And I'm backing up, and I'm still watching it. And I get right to where you go into this road. I'm fixing to be out of the field, and the road, 6 foot bush hog going in, scoot over and catch the other side coming out. It's 12 feet wide, exactly 12 feet wide. And it's like a wall on each side, 11, 12 feet of this growed up mess, honeysuckles, pines, any kind of sapling you can think of, blackberry briars. You can't see this far into it. I get there, and I'm backing up. And what I start noticing, that thing ain't right there at my stand no more. He's still throwing a fit, but he's going back around the field where I'd heard him earlier. He's going around the corner. And I said, oh no, he's going to come around the field. Guys, I flip my safety back on. I suck that Browning rifle into my chest, and I break running. I whirl, and I break running down that road going to the truck. I run as hard as I could go. Now, look, I ain't no speed demon, I told you. But guys, fear is a motivator. Guys, I was running, and I could hear this thing over my right shoulder. It's across, like where the field actually kind of paralleled the road, but there was a narrow spot of trees or thicket there. And then when the field stopped, it was just all that thicket. But I could hear it crashing coming around that side of the field. And then I could hear it narrowing in coming toward me once it come around. It wouldn't cross that field. Undoubtedly, it was not coming out in the field. But when that thing got to where it was angling back in, coming to where I'm going this way, and it came in coming behind me. Guys, when I got to my truck there at that gate I told you about, on the inside of that gate, I took the dozer and cleared out a spot. You could probably park 4 pickup trucks. It was about 30 feet by probably 30, 35 feet. We'll call it that. It was kind of like just a circle where I had thought, hey, we'll open the gate, we'll pull in here, and we park, inside the gate. But the old gate made so much racket, we just parked outside the gate. I had a bunch of room out there. Guys, I hit that little opening, come out of that road, and I come across that little opening to the gate. I run around the gate. Guys, I stopped right there at the hood of my truck, or between the hood and the driver's door. That thing had run right up there, just across that little opening I just told you about. It couldn't have been 10 feet in the thicket from right there. I had to be within 40, 45 feet of it. And it is still losing its mind. I've got my rifle leveled down, safety off again, fingers straight. And I'm like, I got to get in this truck. I've got to get in this truck. I've got to get out of here. I've got to go. And I'm trying to glance around. I'm looking all over the place. I finally get enough nerve that I back up. I reach down. I'm holding this rifle up with one hand, finger straight. I get the door open. I roll the window down. I had a hand crank on my old Dodge 4-wheel drive. I had a hand crank windows, roll the windows down. I get around that, and I'm standing. I've got my rifle back between the door and the cab, and I get up in the truck, and I pull the rifle in, and I slam the door, and I've got the barrel of a loaded 30-06. Now, I did put the safety back on, but I've got the barrel pointing out the window, sticking out about this far, because in my mind, if this thing runs up here and goes to jerk me through this window, he's fixing to eat 5 30-06 rounds in the face.
Yeah.
Guys, I've got the buttstock laying in the seat beside me. The gun's laying across me right here. Well, as I cranked that truck up, dropped it in reverse, and I mean, I'm throwing rocks, dirt, jerk it down and drive, and I come out of there. And guys, you talking about a life-changing experience. Have one of them things chase you out of the woods like that. It will get your attention quick, fast, and in a hurry.
So from that point, how long was it before you went back in those woods hunting again?
Well, we'll talk about that a little bit. Guys, that was a long way from the most scared and the most crazy I've ever had over. That time, it probably took me a week or so to go back. But guys, I'd get back home, and I'd go in, and I'd sit there, and a lot of times I wouldn't even want to talk to my wife about it because I didn't want to scare her to death. But thank God at the time I had my buddy Alan. He'd done been with me through a lot, and I'd be on the phone with him, and I'd sit there and think about it. I'd go, guys, it ain't worth it. You know, I'm gonna come up gone. You know, am I gonna make it out of the woods next time I go? I don't know. And I'd be like, I'm done. I'm not going back over there. It's crazy. Why am I going? And then I'd be like, well, it didn't. I'd finally get to thinking, well, it didn't get me. It could have got me. It didn't get me. And I'd get thinking about it. Just, I guess I tell everybody, like between a hillbilly and a redneck, I'm a red billy. I have got a red goatee and a red mustache. And I reckon, my Irish blood would boil up in me, and I'd get mad. And the more I think about it, the madder I'd get. And then the anger would take over the fear, and I'm like, well, by God, they're not going to run me off. They may kill me. They may tear me limb from limb. But I'm going to take some of them with me, and I'm going to taste really bad. So, but guys, I'd have times that it'd take me several days, and sometimes it might take a couple of weeks before I'd get the courage up to go back in the woods. But I kept going back. I said, I've done this my whole life. They're not going to take it away from me, and they're not going to take this place away from me. And it ramped up from there. I mean, I've had these things come in. I've had them throw rocks at me. I've had them throw pine cones, hickory nuts. I've had them do all kinds of stuff to me. I mean, but we had something happen, and we've tried to put this together. I don't know. I'll chalk it up as blind, dumb luck, kind of what we put together. I never shot at these things. Never squeezed off not one round. Probably a few times I should have. It was. I thought, hey, I'm fixing to not make it home. I've had them get between me and the truck. I'm talking about having me cut off from my way out of the woods, and it was iffy. I mean, it was like, hey, I really don't know what I'm gonna do, but by the grace of good Lord, I kept my head and kept, just like, look, don't get excited, don't hyperventilate. Ain't gonna do anybody any good if I'm passed out over here. But just guys, just crazy, off the wall, something that's not supposed to be real, but they are. And there's people that's seen what I've seen. So there's some people ain't never seen them. But guys, there's a plethora of people out there that's seen these things, that's had encounters, and they're not gonna tell nobody. I went for a long time, wouldn't talk to nobody unless they'd been over there with me. Then once I kind of got a little more involved in it and talked to different people, and where I live right here, guys, I could carry y'all to a restaurant tomorrow. We'd go in there and eat lunch and sit down with old men that's in there. If there's 8 of them old men in there, I can have 6 of them. 6 old men, reputable men in the community. Some of the old timers that's seen them. I can have at least 6 in the morning. I'll tell you a story about when they've seen them over the last 30, 40 years. It's getting more prevalent. People are out in the open with it. And that's what the shame is on it, is people that won't talk and won't say, well, hey, let me tell you what I know. Let me tell you what I've seen. Yeah. And my wife, she told me, she said, it's unreal. She said, what you've seen, and she's heard stuff, she smelt them, and oh my God, they smell. Well, they don't smell all the time. Let's put it that way. Guys, I've had them close, never smelt them. The closest I've ever been to one, walking out of the same field, the upper field. I was walking out one night. I was there by myself. Walking out, I got about 100 yards from the field. When I come around a kind of a bend in the road, I got just to where I could see the grill, the shiny part of the grill of my truck. Didn't have a light on. Same Browning 30-06 rifle laying over my shoulders, pointing behind me. I've got it with my hand. I'm walking. I'm in the center of this road, so I'm 6 feet from the weeds on each side. Guys, I'm walking, and I done got kind of the sigh of relief. Hadn't had nothing happen. Nothing. I'm fine. Hey, there's the truck. I'm fixing to get in the truck. I'm leaving. Right over my shoulder, my right shoulder. I'm talking like right here, right behind me, where I had just walked past. The thing couldn't have been that far inside the bushes. And the only thing, T, it had to be squatted, crouched, laying on the ground. I don't know. All I know is the sound I heard sound like it come from my chest lower. It was downward. There's no way that thing was over 10 feet from me. And when I walked by it, just walking, it goes, "Ugh." And it was to the point so loud, it was like my clothing, like my body vibrated. Mm-hmm. Guys, I almost come out of my skin. I whirl, jerk that rifle down, I spin, just bring the rifle kind of under my arm, flip the safety, and I'm backing up. The thing never made another sound. Nothing. It didn't pop a limb. It didn't break a twig. I had to, like I said, it couldn't have been over. There's no way it was over 2 feet inside the bushes, and I had just walked right past it. Never smelt nothing. I had walked right by it, and for some reason it decided, hey, watch this. And it done that, and guys, I like to have turned inside out.
I can imagine.
Oh, man, I'm going to tell you, I wished everybody that watches this podcast could experience what me and Larry have of being able to sit around a campfire with Greg and hearing him tell these stories. Now, you spoke a little earlier about hearing them vocalize, talking, kind of communicating. If you would, Greg, tell us about when you were hunting with a crossbow. And
man, be glad.
Yeah.
There again, that's one of the ones that I lost some sleep over. That was beyond interesting, to say the least. But I'd had the lower field I told you about, where you went the gate, went to the right, went off the mountain. I was in, that was the first year, whatever year it was the first year that you could legally hunt with a crossbow in the state of Alabama. Me and Dad both went and bought new crossbows, sighted them in, game on. Look, I can't wait to stick something with this crossbow. Got in the stand, and I hunted that same stand 3 days in a row. All 3 days, right before dark, on the far end of that field, and it was about 70 or so yards to the end of that field toward the river. So I'm in this end, across the field, the lower end, and then it went just a little bit, say 15 or so yards maybe out of the field in the hardwoods, and then he went over the crown of the hill down to the water, and it was, say, 75 yards to the water. All right. 3 days in a row, I have sat in this ladder stand right before dark. It was like you was going to set your watch by it. 15, 20 minutes before dark, there was a nice 8-point. I'm talking about guessing probably 18-inch spread. Nice buck. He would come in as a game trail, come in at the bottom of that field. That deer would walk out in that field. He'd go about 2 body lengths in the field. He'd raise his head up. He'd look left. He'd look right. Son of a gun stand there just a second. He'd turn around. He'd go right back in the woods. He'd leave. I watched him 3 days. 3 days in a row. He's come out in this field. And I devised a plan. Oh, boy, I'm fixing to be a whole lot closer to where you're at than where I am now. I'm fixing to bust you. The road, like I said, where it come in the field, you come in, it come down that long hill, and it flattened out for the field, and it kind of tapered a little bit. And then this other road, it peeled off. It went down to the water. Well, kind of where the road and the field, it split a little bit. The hardwoods come up in that. It was like a little triangle. Well, there was a big white oak that I guess lightning had hit. Storm had got it. I'm assuming lightning hit it. But the whole big part of the top had fell out, and it fell right down by the tree trunk. So he had just like this big, massive treetop limbs everywhere. Well, I got my little hunting stool. And instead of getting on this upper end of the field, I walked down here to the kind of the middle part. Actually, it was a little further toward that end of the field than it was where the stand was. I got in there that day pretty early. So I'm guessing 1:45, 2 o'clock. Well, it's bow season in Alabama. It's not getting dark till late. But I wanted to get in there early. That way I had plenty of time. I could do what I wanted to do. And I carry a pair of pruning snips. I cut some little pine saplings, cut them off, and I stuck them up. I took my feet and raked the leaves out, raked me a little bitty narrow trail, probably 12 or so feet up to where I'd cleaned out a bunch of leaves. A spot like half sheet plywood, 4x4. Cleaned all the leaves to the bare dirt. Put my little stool right up in there, and I brushed it in real good. That way up to about eye level or top of my shoulders. I've got all these. There's still some leaves on this white oak that's turned brown by now. But I've stuck all this stuff, raked all the leaves up, and I've made a, sure enough, homemade ground blind. I'm hidden well. Well, I'm sitting on this little low stool. So I'm not sitting on the ground, but I'm on this little stool, and I'm sitting there, got the crossbow in my lap. Well, I sat there and sat there and sat there and sat there. Well, I ain't seen nothing, ain't heard nothing. But I'm sitting where I'm turned, where this buck, if he comes back out, all I've got to do, I'm going to just grab this bow and bring it up, flip a safety, and I'm fixing to poke a hole through it. I sit there, and I start hearing something. Well, it's a little earlier than this deer had been coming out. I mean, we're talking probably 30 or so minutes of daylight left. Well, across the field, this field wasn't real wide. It was probably 20 or so feet wide. And then you had it was hardwood timber, but it kind of like made a little swag, and it was a cane brake that came through there. Well, the cane brake was probably 15, 20 yards wide, and it ran pretty much the length of that field over in that swag. Well, I hear this thing coming from 150 yards or so up in the hardwoods. It's coming down, up on the bench shelf above the river, and this thing's walking bipedal. It walks up, and it's just across the other side of the field from me, on the other side of the cane brake. Well, it walks up there and stops. Well, then here in a few minutes, it turns, and it starts walking up toward the end where the ladder stand is. Well, it walks up there, and about what I put together, it was probably far enough that the thing was hidden in the cane brake, or either on the other side of the cane brake, but it got to where it could actually see the ladder stand. And it stayed there a minute, didn't make any more noise, like any kind of vocalization, no nothing. The thing turns around, and it walks back down on the other side of the cane brake. It goes back toward the river, comes around the bottom of this field where I'm sitting. It comes just over the crown of the hill toward the river. It walks just down below me, and it stops. Well, I'm sitting there trying to figure out what it's going to do, And at this point in time, I'm like, I really would like to be somewhere besides here. If this thing, let me see what it's going to do. I'm fixing to either get out in the middle of the field. I'm going to have to go up this hill to the truck, 200 something yards. I really don't want to be here. But I'm thinking, okay, it's going to go on around. It's going to go on. I'm going to let it go out of here, and then I'm going to sneak out. Well, the thing gets down there, and anybody that's ever spent much time in the woods, if you find an old log that's laid on the ground for a long time. It's pretty rotten, whatever. If you go to roll it over, if you go to pick it up, you got all these little, it looks like little bitty vines, or I'll call it tentacles, but it's like spores and stuff that grow off of it. And when you pick it up, it's almost like pulling Velcro. You'll hear it kind of rip like and pull loose.
Mm-hmm.
I heard something pull a log off the ground that was massive. I'm talking about this log wasn't little bitty by no means, because it ripped. It sounded like a 30-foot long, 12-inch wide piece of Velcro pull loose. And then it was quiet for just a second, and then I hear it hit the ground, and then it goes boom, 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 whop, like it pulled it loose, tossed it. It hit on the ground, and it was like rolling off this hill, and then it hit a tree. Well, I'm like, and in my mind, I'm painting this picture of, okay, I know what I heard. That's exactly what I just heard happen. Well, then I start hearing, it sounds like you've got a garden rake or something, and you're raking like really loose, soft soil and just throwing it like just by the shovelfuls, and it's sprinkling, it's just casting out across these dry leaves. And I'm going, what is this thing doing? What is it doing? And then it dawns on me, okay, this thing is getting grub worms, or it's raking through this soft soil that was under this log. And that's all I can put together that it was doing was, it's finding something to eat. Well, I sit there and listen to it, and it's just, I'm hearing this, and it'll get quiet, and then I'm hearing some more moving leaves around. Well, then here in just a few minutes, I hear right the way that this thing came from when I first heard it, I hear bipedal walking, and it's heavy, and it's coming toward me. Well, that thing comes up, and it gets right there about where the little thicket, the canebrake is. Instead of going up and doing like that one done, it just comes around the bottom corner, just out of sight, and it goes right to where I'm hearing this other one. And it walks up like right there with it. I got two of them now. There's two of them right here. And guys, it's just over the crown of this hill on this slope that I can't see it. It's right here. It's right there. There's no way it was over 40 yards. 40, 45 yards tops. It's right here. I just cannot see it for the contour of the land. And guys, that thing walks up there. And the best I can tell you is that it was like the Sierra Sounds. Somebody go online, listen to the Sierra Sounds, and it was a whole lot like that. It sounded like mad Russian people, mad Japanese people, Chinese. A foreign language is what I heard. Native American, kinda. I heard two beings communicating. It would be like kind of like an argument. To me, it sounded like something, two people arguing. And it would be like you'd hear this one voice, and it would rattle on, and then this other one would like answer it, and it would rattle on, and then it stopped, and then this one, and it was like I was hearing two different tone voices, and they were back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And guys, you could have cut my throat and I wouldn't have bled 2 drops. I've got to go. I need to be somewhere but here. I've got to get out of here. I don't know what these things are doing, but there's 2 of them, and there's one of me, and I need to be gone. Guys, I've done this for Nate and them and Coonbo. I'll try to do an impersonation of it, and it'll be horrible. I can't do it even remote justice. But it would be like one syllable. It was like almost like a glitch record. It would repeat the same syllable, and it would just be like tuk, 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 tuk. But it would be like when it first started, it was like oi, ha, ha, hi, hi, oh, yeah. And then the other one would go hoi, 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 hi, yeah. And then the other one would pick up hoi, yeah, ya, ya, ha, 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 oh. And it would go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Guys, if you could see my arms right now, I have got chill bumps telling this. I listen to these things and I'm like, I've got to go. And I'm plotting and planning. I'm like, look, okay, I can get up. I'm going to stay as crouched as I can. I ease out of this stool, and I've got my crossbow in my left hand. But look, before I got up, Alabama, we got a lot of wild hogs. We got a lot of coyotes, and I carry a concealed .357 Magnum pistol for my protection, not to hunt with, because it was bow season. I had this .357 Magnum in a shoulder holster, and it is a Smith & Wesson 686 Combat Plus revolver that holds 7 rounds. I've done unstrapped this pistol, eased it out, and as I stood up, I thumb cocked the hammer on this gun. I had it thumb cocked, my finger straight, and I am creeping, bent like my back had to look like a question mark because I'm squatted I'm a little above duck walking, but I ease and get into the green grass. I hadn't made any racket. They're still down here jabbering. I get out in the green grass, and kind of like Fred Flintstone when he jumped up on his tippy toes, I was going across that field. I got to the edge of the field, and every year when I would disc that field to plant it, I would drop the disc in the road, and I would disc it. That way, if there was any leaves, it would chop those up, and it would soften the ground so you could walk in and out and a whole lot quieter. So I get there to that, and I'm right at the bottom of going out of this field up in this road, and I stop for just a second. I can still hear them down there, and I can hear back on the dirt slaying. I can hear them jabber. It's slowed down some, but I take off up this road, and I go about halfway. I've went 100 yards as hard and quiet as I can, and I stop, and I'm like sucking wind, and I let the hammer down on the pistol, and I'm sitting there. I've still got the crossbow in this hand, pistol in this hand, pointing over here, and I suck wind for a second and get my second breath, and I take off to the truck. Guys, I got to that truck, and it was like I just almost overwhelming, just all I could take, because I've just heard something that apparently very few people on the planet have ever been privileged to hear. And that was 2 of these things communicating, and apparently didn't have a clue that I was anywhere in the world.
Mark, you're muted.
I'm not only muted, I'm rusty.
Amateur.
Yeah. You have had so many experiences, and there is just no way we can cover them tonight. But there is something that has happened to you. It's happened to your wife. It's happened to your Paul, with when y'all were hunting and y'all harvest a deer, and then you go to retrieve the deer, and the deer is gone. You can pick something that's happened to your Paul or your wife, or something that's happened to you, but it's happened a lot.
Oh yeah. And, well, yeah, these things they'll steal from you. They're very opportunistic. They'll, if they get them a free meal, buddy, they'll jump on it. The one I can tell you, I've told this one before. I told it on another podcast. That upper field, I was in the stand. I had a buck come in. It was a while before dark. The deer come in pretty much spot on, 175, 180 yards. He was nearly at the far end of that field. I'd looked all around the field and, wasn't seeing any deer. And anybody that's deer hunted very much, you can glance over a field, and time you ease your eyes, most time you're cutting your eyes instead of your head. The time you look around this side of the field, when you eyes come back, there'll be a deer out in the field, look like he just sprung up out of the ground. You'll never see him. He'll just be there. And that's kind of what happened that day is time I cut my eyes around and cut them back, this deer was a couple of body lengths or better out in the field. He's totally broadsided, facing, his head's toward my left. And I just seen his head was down. He was eating grass, and I seen his horns, just sticking out. Dude, I brought my rifle up and just leaned up on the shooting rail, when I first got him in the scope, I could see, 3 points on this one side. And, if he's got the brow tine, he's 8. I just pull back on right behind his front shoulder, flip the safety off, take me a breath. And when I pull the trigger, this deer just bows up and he hits the ground. Well, he kicks about twice on his side and it spins him 180 degrees. Well, I brought my head up over the scope looking. And by the time I see him, he kind of rolls and he rolls back up like his belly's on the ground. And he's kind of upright, but his belly is laying on the ground. Well, I dropped back on the scope right quick. And by the time I fixed to pull the trigger, it's like his rear end raises up. It's like he just kicked and it just shot him up in the woods, up in that thicket. I knew he was hit hard. So I sat there a few minutes, climbed down, and I thought, well, I'll give him, just a little bit, and I'll walk down there because I know I've hit this deer hard. I mean, I've killed my first deer when I was 5. I've killed probably 2 train cars full of deer in my life. I get down, walk out there, and gosh, I was 20, 25 feet or better from where I knew where he was at because it was, the game trails coming out in the field. 20, 25 feet, I can see blood. There's blood everywhere. And I get up there close, and there's chunks of meat, chunk of lung. I mean, it was a chunk of lung big as my finger laying on the ground. And at the edge of the field where I'd went around with a bush hog, it was a little, kind of like a little border of sage grass, knee high. Well, it looks like you've drug a mop that wide of blood right across through that sage grass, kind of flattened it over. So I'll take, 5 or 6 steps. Well, that thicket is so thick, like I said, you can't see this far in it. So where the deer trails come out, it's almost like having a tunnel, like maybe chest high, just like an oval tunnel where they just bust out of that stuff and they got their trail. And the way they keep it, open is they eat all the foliage. Well, I walked right there to the sage grass and I just kind of stooped down and look up under there. It's probably 30 feet maybe. I see the white from its tail. Well, there's my buck. So I step over the sage grass where all this blood's at, and I duck walk. I squat down, kind of duck walk, maybe 6, 8 feet, and it opens up. Well, I stand up. I walk right up there behind this buck. I've got my rifle holding it, and I've got it pointing down. I walk up behind him, take my boot, and kick him on the hind quarter. It just jiggles. So I step up. It's the trail's a little wider than I am. So I'd say 3 foot or better wide, maybe a little bit more. I step up kind of around the way he was laying. His legs was to my left. I stepped between his front legs and his back legs with my left foot, get my rifle in this hand, holding it out of the way, and I reached down, grabbed the deer by the horns because where he fell, the leaves and the straw that was in there, the one side of his rack was kind of stuck up in it. And the rack that was the side that I was seeing, I could see the main end of the main beam and then the next 2 points. So I could see these 3 real pretty. And this thing was snow white rack. I mean, he was pretty. But I reached down and grabbed him by the horns. When I pick his head up, his tongue's hanging out that far, blood pouring out. He's not breathing. His rib cage ain't moving. He's not wiggled. He's not pulling against me. He's dead as he can be. But when I pick his head up, I'd say 17.5 to 18-inch spread, but he didn't have any of the brow tines that what they call, some people call them eye guards, the first small points, in the rack off past as it comes off the head. No brow tines. So instead of him being a real nice 8, he was a really nice 6 point. So I stand there and, 15, 20 seconds and I'm moving his head around. I'm looking at the horns, pulling his neck back, lay his head back down. I'm like, well, now I got to load this son of a gun. And I'm talking about a deer that probably 180 pounds, 185 pounds. He's a good deer for North Alabama. I walk back, duck walk out, pop out in the field, walk across the field, probably 30, 35 yards. Hit the road that I told you about a while ago where I turned, the Cathead Rock Road, where I turned running. I walk into it, walk the 200 yards to my pickup, get my key, unlock that metal gate that I told you about that makes all the racket. Swing it open, drive my 4-wheel drive Dodge pickup, the 200 yards, turned out in the field, pull over there next green grass, and then back it up within about 10, 15 feet of the sage grass with all the blood on it. Get out, walk to the back of the truck, drop the tailgate, Stepped out of that sage grass, and I kind of stepped over it and bent over to go up in there and grab that deer that's 30 feet. That deer wasn't there no more. He's gone. The leaves, the straw wasn't drugged. Nothing had drugged this deer. The deer he didn't get up and walk off. He was dead as he could be. Dead. D-E-A-D right there. But that deer wasn't there no more. We're talking 10, 15 minutes. That deer was gone. And that was one of 6 deer in the last 11 years that we've had stole. I don't mean, hey, we shot one, we made a questionable shot. Hey, even we made a good shot and the deer was running on pure adrenaline. He made it 150 yards out of sight. We lost the blood trail and couldn't find him. No, that's not what I'm talking about. We've had a few of those too. That we'd have I'm talking about massive blood trail. I'm talking about stream of blood that wide, look like he's pouring out of a paint can. Get to the end of it, find a pool of blood 36 inches around across it, 36 inches, be blood that deep in the leaves. No deer. Deer's gone. I ain't talking about those. I'm talking about shoot the deer, walk to the deer, lay hands on the deer, lay it back down, pick its head up, look at it, walk up, kick it. It's dead. It's laying right here. It's dead. Ain't moving. You leave, go get a vehicle, ATV, come back. There's 50-50 chance that deer's not going to be there no more. It's got to where over here when we kill one, my dad, before he passed, he'd laugh at me. He'd give me down the road, and he absolutely thoroughly enjoyed picking at me, and I loved it. I'd love to have him back right now to ridicule me all night long because we'd laugh, me and him laugh together. But I'd call him. One of the last real good deer I killed about 4 years ago, shot a big 8-point. He's shoulder mounted on the wall at my house. I shot that deer. I called Dad. I dropped that deer. It was right before dark. This is a piece of property that I still hunt now because I don't hunt this other piece that I've been talking about. I hadn't hunted it in a few years, and I'll get to that on why I don't hunt it anymore. But this just across the river, and it's only half a mile from this other piece of property. And I called Dad. I said, hey, I need you to come help me. He said, what do you mean? I said, I've killed a good 8 over here. He said, well, you can't load it? I said, no, I can't load this deer. He said, why? I said, it's probably going to weigh 200 pounds. And that deer weighed 212 pounds. We weighed it on a set of cotton scales. He said, well, why don't you just leave it and go get some help? I said, I ain't leaving this deer. He starts laughing in the phone. He said, I'll be there in a minute. Well, when you kill a deer over here where I hunt, you don't leave that deer. You call somebody, and you better stay with that deer till they get there and help you load it, or odds are it's not going to be there when you get back. It'll vanish. Dad shot a big doe. He'd been having chemo treatments, and his health wasn't too good, and he shot a big doe, and the doe he shot her about 200 and something yards. I told him, I said, look, I said, go. I was wrong on that. That was before. It was pre-chemo treatment. But anyway, Dad's health had not been good, and he hadn't felt like hunting in a while. And I told him, I said, look, why don't you go hunting me this evening? I don't know. I said, look, I've been going out here in one of these shooting houses. I said, there's a herd of does coming out. I said, there'll be 6 or 7 of them every day. They're going to come out there across this field. It's going to be about 200, 205 yards where they're going to come out. They're going to come out and eat about 10 minutes. They're going to go down the field, and they're going to go in this other trail. I said, go down there and kill you one. Because this property, I manage the herd that's on it. I don't kill does unless it's one that's done having babies. I told him, I said, look, there's 2 old does in here. They're big. They're done having little ones. If you want to go kill one of them, kill it. He said, well, me and your mama's out of meat. I said, well, we'll be ready this evening. I'll come get you. I said, we'll go in my Jeep. I'll drive you right to the staircase at the bottom of the shooting house. You got to walk, 3 feet, climb 12 steps. I'll come back and get you. Well, all right. So he goes. I let him out at that green field. I go hunting on the other end of this property. It's 300 acres. I'm on the other end of it. It's 30, 45 minutes before dark. It's a while before dark. I hear his gun go off. Boom. I send him a message. You get one? Yeah. What'd you get? One of them big does. Good. I'll see you at dark. You may see a buck. So I stay in there and it starts getting pretty dim. So I come out of the stand up there and I make my way to my Jeep. Time I get to the Jeep, it's dark. I got to drive probably a half a mile across this 300 acres to get to where Dad's at. So it's done been dark for several minutes before I get there. Because this half a mile is an old log or a field road through the woods to pop out in these old farm fields. So you're going 3 or 4 miles an hour. I get there where he's at, pull up to the shooting house, back right up where when he comes down the steps, all he's got to do is reach out, open the Jeep door and get in. He gets in the Jeep. Instead of going all the way around the field, I started around the field and I said, where's it at? He said, it's right over where you told me it's going to come out. There's an old log road that comes in the field straight across from this shooting house. So I just spin the steering wheel and cut across in that Jeep, cut across this field. Well, I'm going across it and it's 200, 205 yards. We get about 30, 40 yards from where this road's at on the other side where it comes into the field. I said, where's your deer? Now my Jeep is a 2006 Wrangler. It's got KC lights on the winch bumper and then up on the top. So I got all these KC lights on it. It looks like daytime. I said, where's your deer? He said, well, it's right. And he points and he's like, his finger drops. He said, well, it was right there. I said, right where? He said, right there in that road. He said, where that sage grass, where you left it a little high. And it was about 20 feet that I didn't cut all the way to the wood line right there. And there was some sage grass up about knee high. He said, well, I shot her and she hit the ground and she flipped, like kicked over back and forth. She jumped up and run just a few feet and fell over. And he said her head, like her front legs and her head was in the tall part of the sage grass. And from right there back was out in the grass about this high where I'd planted it. He said, I said, well, you didn't see her get up? Why didn't you shoot her again? He said, well, I didn't have to shoot her again. He said, it's been a while since I shot her. He said, I watched her, once she fell over. He said, I seen her raise her head, just kind of pick her head up. And he said, I could hear her like grunt, just, and her head dropped. He said, she quit moving, didn't kick, didn't wiggle, didn't nothing. He said, there was no need of me shooting her again. He said, when it got dark, he said, I kept looking over here through the scope, just see how long I could see her as it kept getting darker. And he said, it got dark. And he said, it was several minutes before you got here, when it got to where I couldn't see her anymore. I said, but she didn't move. He said, no, she didn't move. Well, I pull up her in the Jeep and get out, leave it sitting there idling. All the headlights, all these KC lights are on. We walk there and look, and sure enough, right where he's sitting, there's a puddle of blood this big. No deer. Deer's gone. I'm talking about not a trace. It's vanished. Well, I get to looking about 3 or 4 feet from where the deer was laying. There was a big imprint, about 18 inches long, about 9, 10 inches wide in sage grass. Sage grass just kind of spread out where this imprint was. About 4 or 5 feet behind it was another one. About 4 or 5 feet behind that was another one. We found 3 or 4 tracks where that thing had stepped in that tall sage. I guess it snatched his deer up and took off. But I told him, I said, boogerman got your deer. I said, you just fed the boogerman. He said, well, I don't know what got it. Something got my deer. I said, I'm telling you what got your deer. What do you think got it? Well, he said, it must have been one of them things. I said, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Well, about 3 days later, I go back riding over there into that field. And like I said, this field is 28-acre hayfield is what it is. And it's in the middle of this, or on the backside of 300 acres my cousin had. And I drove up in the field in my Jeep. And when I get around part of this field where I can see the far end where we lost his deer, there's something out in the field. And it's down. And when I first saw it, I thought it was a coyote. So I whirl the steering wheel, turn the driver's door toward it, reach over and grab my rifle, throw a shell in it, shut the bolt, stick it out the window. And I get to looking because I think I'm fixing to get to kill a coyote, which is totally legal. And it's not moving. And I can't tell what it is. So I crank my scope up to like 12 power. And I'm like, what is that? And it's not moving. I can't tell exactly what it is. And then I get to thinking, I'm thinking I'm seeing rib bones. I pull the rifle back in, pull the shell out of it, lay it back in the seat, take off over there, pull up. Laying out in this field where 3 days before, where I turned my Jeep around in the field to leave after we can't find his deer, it's gone. Within just a few feet of where my marks was, my tire tracks from my Jeep, there's a deer carcass, and it's laying out in the field, out from the wood line. So we got the wood line, and then we leave a road the width of a vehicle where we don't disc it so we can drive all the way around the field. So it's kind of a field road around the field. But you got the woods, the field road, and then way out here in the field, 25, 30 yards or so, I can't remember now. It's all wrote down, and the reason it's wrote down is because it's in a Bigfoot book. The story I just told you. This carcass is out in the field. And the thing about this carcass, the rib bones, the rib cage on the right side that Dad would have been shooting at, there was a little bitty round hole right in the center of a rib bone that should have lined up right behind the shoulder. The opposite side of this deer, there was a rib bone that there was a piece of it was missing, like the bullet had went through and it was small. It expanded and then took out a big piece of a rib bone going out the other side. The thing of it is that the hide on this carcass was like something had grabbed it in the center of the backbone and peeled it apart. The hide was stretched up over, kind of off of the hindquarters, the hams, and then up over the neck. But the neck was like spun, looked like you had twisted it like a Twizzler, and it was folded like a pretzel and laying back up over the backbone. Every bit of the innards was gone. Every organ, the guts, the heart, the lung, the liver, everything inside this deer was empty. The hindquarters looked like something had grabbed and just jerked. Big pieces of meat were gone off of it. The neck bone, where the spinal column was, it was like it was just wrinkled up where it was broke. The ground where this thing was at, I had run out of seed when we planted it for the grain field, and it had been disked. It had rained right before Dad shot this deer, like a day or so before, so the ground was soft. You could see on the ground between the carcass, or on the wood side of the carcass, it looked like something had flung that thing from a pretty far distance. You could see where it impacted the ground. You could see where it had rolled, like the carcass had rolled and it come to rest. That was the only thing disturbed around this carcass for several feet. I mean, for a long way. There was no buzzard tracks. There was no coyote tracks. There was no cat tracks. There was nothing. There was no drag marks. It was like something had flung that thing from the woods, just heaved it. And you could see the impact marks and see where it tumbled like 2 or 3 revolutions and stopped. But all the sweetmeats was gone. I mean, it was like, I told Dad, I said, well, that's something. I said, undoubtedly, they were like, thanks for what we got. Y'all can have the scraps. But something brought that carcass back and flung it out in that field right where I had turned my Jeep around the evening he shot that deer.
That's wild.
Wow.
Now, whenever y'all do harvest a deer and y'all do make it to the deer with a vehicle, do y'all field dress the deer, or do y'all take the heart and all with you?
No, we carry it all with us. I have now. If it's really bad, and if I have one that gets off in somewhere I can't get to with a big one, we gotta drag it by hand. Yeah, I will. I'll zip one open. That don't take just a second. I've done it. I've done it plenty, I promise you. But no, we most of the time we'll just haul them out. And one of the reasons I have is my buddy Troy. He keeps telling me, you need to leave them something. You're gonna make them mad. You need to leave them something. You're gonna make them mad. And he's like, I'm like, dude, look, I'm friendly enough with them. They know I'm here. They get theirs periodically. I'm not really to the point of trying to habituate them right now. They took plenty from me, and but guys, we've just had a lot of crazy stuff, I look, like I started to tell you a while ago. My wife, we were watching. I don't remember which show, television. I can flip this TV on right here and I can find some type of Bigfoot show in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I told my wife one night, I said, it's something. She said, what do you mean? I mean, we were laying in bed and I had TV on. She said, what are you talking about? I said, it's really something, ain't it? I said, you got all these people on national TV, on all these channels, I said, they supposed to be the experts of Bigfoot. I said, here I am, just dumb redneck hillbilly. And I said, I can't get the dang things to leave me alone. I had ignorance is bliss a long time ago. And I said, these people out here spending thousands of dollars trying to have an encounter. And I wish they'd leave me alone.
Yeah.
And I said, they got all the letters of the alphabet by their name. And I said, they're on here telling people, some of these folks, they can't be real, and they and all that. There's no such thing. I said, you take old working redneck like I am, and I said, I know more than that guy on there with that string of alphabet in front of his name.
Yep. No doubt.
I saw that Debbie in chat mentioned that we have over 500 people that are watching right now, and that's fantastic.
Wow.
We're getting short on time, and we've had questions pop up, and I can't go back and retrieve them. So if you have a question for Greg, then put them in all caps, and we'll see if we can pick out a few of your questions. But before we get into that, you are a part of a group called Big Dog T2B.
Yes.
And Jack does an excellent job with building the YouTube channel, the website, and all of that. Why don't you just kind of give us a little summary about Big Dog T2B? And I'm going to put the link to the YouTube channel in chat. So y'all make sure that y'all go and subscribe.
Yeah, guys, that the Big Dog T2B, that was a brainchild from my good buddy, and like I said, I look at him like a brother, Nate Bowen. Guys, y'all go on there and y'all listen to some of Nate's encounters, and I've got to where I despise the labeling it stories. I used to tell everybody, well, let me tell you a story. Well, the story to me, that insinuates that it may be made up. Guys, it's encounters. I mean, it's things that we've lived and things we've seen. And Nate's like me. Y'all, he's from North Alabama. Me, Jimmy Osmer, Coonbo Baker. We just a bunch of old Alabama boys that enjoy the outdoors. And we've had this stuff, in our lives. And we're trying to reach people, and used to, guys, I'd keep it kind of hush hush. Didn't want many people knowing who I was or what it was, what I had going on. But guys, there's people out there that's had things that they can't explain, and it'll weigh on you. I promise you, it will weigh on you something terrible. Because when you've got, 99.9% of the population wanting to ridicule and make fun of you, and what you've seen, you're not crazy. That what you've seen, people's telling you that it ain't supposed to be real. They ain't supposed to exist. Guys, they're real. They're real. I ain't even touched on tonight. I've seen out of all the dozens of encounters I've had, these things don't want to be seen. I've seen three of them that I've laid my eyes on. 3. 2 of them daytime. One of them I had run across the highway in front of me. I was going down the road in a truck. Thing come out of the woods, jumped the ditch, went across the highway, jumped the other ditch. Broad daylight. I saw it. What I saw was 8.5 feet tall, 4 feet wide, over 2 foot thick. had to have weighed over 800 pounds. Jet black. I'm talking about jet black, shiny hair. And there's not been you couldn't take a pro athlete, an Olympian. You couldn't put him in and mash fast forward and make him move like that thing did. Unreal. I mean, something that big, dang sure ain't supposed to do what it did. But I've seen 3 of them. And when I say dozens of encounters for the last, over 20 years now, I didn't go looking for these things. I just refused to let them run me off. And maybe if y'all have me back, I'll go into depth on how things got better. And it was by sheer accident.
Absolutely. We've got a question it's almost the same question from Corky and also from Debbie. And they ask, do they ever follow you home?
I hadn't had them follow me to my house, but I got a piece of property that I own, and that's where I'm sitting. Watch this. Let me lean my camera up. That's on my wall. If y'all can see my solid aluminum Bigfoot up here on the wall behind me. But I'm actually sitting in my place. I got a cabin on the lake, and my cabin's very not far from where I hunt. And yes, I've had encounters right here where I'm sitting.
You've had one right there on New Year's, I believe.
Yes, I sure did.
We're going to say that for the next time that you come on.
There you go. And guys, back on, and like I told you guys, I get tore up and excited talking about this stuff. But the big dog T2, big dog, BIGDOG, T, the letter T, the number 2, and the letter B. Big dog T2B. Guys, I did a couple episodes on there with Coonbo. A lot of y'all's gonna know who Coonbo is. And man, Coonbo's like my brother. But guys, go on the Big Dog T2B on YouTube. If y'all like what you hear, guys, please comment, like it, share it. But I've got, I think it's episode 9, and it's part 1, 2, 3, and 4. We recorded, I think I done about 3.5 hours. So Jack broke it up into 4 parts. But guys, it's just, and please listen to Jimmy Osmer, another man I look at like a brother. Guys, we're just some good old country boys that we want to share what we know with other people that's got questions. And guys like meeting y'all, just, overwhelmed at the guys that I've been blessed to have in my life that's not going to ridicule, that's going to take you at your word, because they know they've seen things that they can't explain. And there's one thing I will tell you, I don't know anybody that's an expert. And I know a lot of people that know more than others. But there's guys, how many times like y'all think you get an answer to one question and that answer creates 5 more questions?
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Bama Murdoch asked, when you first heard the coordinated knocks and whoops, what did y'all think it was? And did you really want to see one? Do you think it would affect your religion or your beliefs?
Well, guys, I really didn't know to start with. I mean, like I told you, I thought it was just some moron down there trying to ruin my hunt or doing something stupid. He didn't know what he was doing, or maybe he thought he was going to put up a stand. I didn't know. I didn't know what was happening. I just knew it was messing me up. The whoops, we couldn't figure it out. I mean, me and Dad, because face it, guys, we're talking about 2000, 2001. There wasn't all this stuff on the internet, and it wasn't like it is now, where everybody on their brother, they make these whoop sounds and they beat on trees. I didn't have nobody to talk to about none of this. We was going into this blind. We was, it was like, we're going to figure a little something out here, and we may put this together and may put that together. Then I got to reading. I got to pulling up stuff. But what one of the other things that really catapulted me into, okay, this is what's going on, was because I started hearing about other people in my community or in the surrounding areas that a guy saw one from right here where my cabin is. A guy saw one cross the paved highway up here, which will be 3/8 of a mile. he saw one. This guy was a security guard. He come around the curve coming home one morning about 4 a.m. The thing come across the highway in front of him. He nearly hit it. Well, I heard about that. And then I was like, uh-oh. Because I knew this guy. I went to church with this man. He was not a liar. The man went home and stayed in his house for about 48 hours and wouldn't even come outside. He was an avid hunter and fisherman. It spooked the guy horribly. Then I've got over here on this other piece of property that I was telling you that I hunt now, the 300 acres that's just across the river from where I hunted before. 2004, I took pictures of a footprint that was a little over 16 inches long and between 9 and 10 inches wide, 5 toes. You could see the pictures doesn't do it justice. Took them with a Polaroid. It's 2004. I don't even know if they had a camera phone. I sure didn't have one. But anyway, at that time, I was a hefty guy. I weighed 320 pounds. I could hop off the edge of the branch into the sand where this thing's track was, wearing Timberland boots, and I marked down maybe a quarter of an inch or less. This thing was mashed down, an inch in the same soil compaction. And it was a way bigger foot than I got, and it had 5 pretty toes. And where the toes had went into the sand, it was so fresh that you could see it didn't have claws. It had toenails. And like where the toe ended, the toenail curled over the end, and it looked like a slice, like with a knife blade. And where the little balls of sand came out with the toenail, they were still wet. It was fresh. The most tracks I've ever found, I found a trackway on down below. I mean, right below where I heard the two communicating. I found a trackway that had crossed the river and came out on a sandbar island, came up the bank where it was probably a 45 degree angle. The thing went up through that sand and it got to the top and it walked around that island and jumped up in the woods. But 30 plus tracks. And the weird thing, and when I found these, I didn't know anything about the metatarsal break or what they say about it. But I can tell you this, where that thing went up there, like if you or I or any of us, anybody you name, if we were going up that sand where the sand was wet, it's kind of compacted and then it got loose. If we're walking up a hill trying to get traction, what are you going to do? We're going to turn our feet out, to try to make a wider spot. This thing went up that bank and the tracks were in line. The feet didn't flare out. They stayed straight. But here's the deal. The foot looked like if you or I took our hand and folded it, it looked like the front part of the foot stuck into the ground, and it was like stuck in, and then the back part was on the angle. It dug in every foot, and it was like one in front of the other, and they were folded. And when it got up there and turned, they flattened back out, and it went around that island.
Wow.
But
we got one last question here from Can Squatch. He asked, have you seen anything on the property that you cannot explain, like supernatural or woo or even orbs?
No, I've went over this time and time again with Troy Allen, and I'm not saying anything like that. Now I've seen these things do things that doesn't make sense, that doesn't look possible. The way they move, the way they can be right on top of you and you never hear them one time, the next time they sound like a freight train. I don't know how they do that. I don't know how they can come through a thicket, the speed they can come through it. And I don't know how they can move through that thicket and you don't hear them. You won't hear nothing. They'll be right on top of you. And it's like they came from nothing. I don't know. But I've not personally, now I've got buddies that I've trusted my life that's saying orbs, saying spirits. I haven't. I've not witnessed that. But to get back on, I think it was Bama asked something about the spiritual. One thing that I will, and I've never said this on anything other than my close buddies. Guys, I'm going to tell you something. You get off in the woods, I'll give everybody a piece of advice. If you get off and you think your body's in danger, you think you're in danger with these things. I'll tell you what I have done. I have rebuked these things in the name of Jesus Christ, and I've had them leave.
Yeah.
I have spoken out loud, and I have said, I didn't scream it, but I said, in the name of Jesus, I command you to leave. You leave here and you leave now, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And boys, if y'all can see my arms right now, I've got chill bumps from head to toe. But I've had them leave. I've had them turn. It's just like the whole demeanor, like you turned the light switch off.
You know, you're not the first person that I have heard say that. I have heard several people say that. And they left. And they one real quick last question from Rhonda, and she is curious to know if you're near St. Clair.
No, I'm not near St. Clair. I'm further north than that in Alabama.
And that's all he'll say about that.
Yeah.
Guys, look here. I don't want to pin it down.
I don't blame you.
I don't want somebody getting hurt, but also I'd have to go more into detail on what I've dealt with these things and just me dealing with them. Let's put it like this. I honest to God believe that these things, after they get to know somebody, that they get comfortable around you, because it got to where me, my dad, my wife, Alan, people that were going with my children. I mean, my son's 15 years old. I just turned 16 yesterday. My daughter's 10. They're not belligerent like they were. Now, we still have stuff happen, but I honest to God believe it's because of, and I'll have to explain to you one day what I did. And it was just by sheer dumb luck. And it was like that diffused the entire situation. It was just like it went. It's like, hey, whoop, he knows what we are. He's not messing with us. He's not retaliating back. He's okay. And that's kind of where I'm at with him. I may go 3 months, nothing happened. I may have something happen 4 times in a week. And it may be a hoop, howl, whoop, scream, tree knock. I may have something come up gone. They stole a bag of food off my porch New Year's Eve, this last New Year's. Like I said, find footprints, a little over 100 feet from my cabin. Guys, I don't want, I just really, to protect them, because I don't know if they're here or when they'll be here, when they're not. I mean, I think they do roam. I don't think these here go a really long way like some may do. But all I can tell people is guys, look, keep your head on a swivel, look around, pay attention to what's going on. And if you have some dude that may look like a red Billy, tell you, hey, let me tell you what I walked on over here in the woods. Don't discount that guy, because odds are he's telling you exactly what you need to be weary of.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's great advice. I usually ask for our guests at the end of the show to share something that might help everybody, but man, you nailed it on that. Larry, do you have any final words?
Well, Greg's been the guest I expected, and I can't wait to part 2, 3, 4, whatever we got there. But he's already left us with a cliffhanger. You got to come back and tell us what you did to get some peace.
Well, I'll be proud to, guys, if y'all think I'm worth having back. But all I can swear to you is I can tell you nothing but the truth of what's happened to me. And I just hope that there's somebody out there that's that maybe sees this or hears this. That maybe it'll fill in a piece of the puzzle, make them feel like that they're not going crazy. That there is folks out here that's been through some of what they've been through. But guys, it's crying shame that a lot of these people out here are so afraid of ridicule that they won't tell people what they've seen. Yeah. And guys, I hope I live long enough. I hope all of us live long enough to see this come out and the government go, hey, all right, yeah, we've been holding out on y'all for a very long time. So
yeah, I agree. I got a question. When's deer season in Alabama start? Rifle season?
well, used to the whole state started like the Saturday before Thanksgiving. So it's usually, what is that? It'll be like 19th, 20th, 21st of November. That's when gun season starts. Yeah.
Okay. Well, me and Larry will be at your man cave the Friday before.
Hey, looky here. Before we left the LBL, that's what me and Coonbo had talked to Buckner and told him he needed to come on over here since he's not too far away. I can't guarantee him he'll see nothing or anything, but I would like to get him over here and let him go boogering with me and Jimmy Osmer and Nate.
Yeah.
And
He needs a good dose of it. He does.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard Buckner say that, he's never seen nothing like that or hadn't really had an experience. He just loves telling about other people's. Guys, that's the guy that I would love to, when you could be 10 feet away from him and see his shirt moving from his heart pounding.
Yeah.
These things chase you to the truck. Yeah. That would be nice.
And I know I can outrun Cam.
Man.
But Greg, man, you're such a good friend. We think highly of you. And
guys, I do, y'all too. But man, I just if y'all have me back, I'll be proud. All I can sit here and do is we'll have story time again or film time.
That'd be good.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. And if you didn't get your question asked, we're sorry. Maybe you could put it in the comment section and Greg can answer you.
Tell them put them in the comments. I'll try to go through there tonight, tomorrow, or something. I'll try to answer some if I got them.
But don't ask where his hunting land's at.
No doubt.
And tomorrow morning, I'm going to pin at the top the YouTube channel for Big Dog T2B. And so everybody that watches this, if you are not subscribed to that channel, you've got to go and check this channel out. And it's awesome. So I'll have that pinned at the top of the comment section. And just want to thank everybody for tuning in. It's been a fantastic night. Larry, do you have any final words?
Just thank Greg for coming on and sharing his experiences, and looking forward to part 2. And hopefully we can get over into North Alabama with him and Coonbo and Jimmy and get in on some of this action.
Yes, sir.
We might drag Cam Buckner over there with us.
Hey, guys, we'd be proud to have y'all. I promise you, y'all. We'll just set some up. We may have to wait till it ain't so snaky right now. That and the killer ticks.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank everybody for tuning in and watching. We love y'all. We appreciate everybody that comes in our chat and leaves comments, and we will see y'all again. It may be a different bat channel, but it will be the same bat time. So night footers. If you would like to support Beast TV, check out our gear. We have coffee mugs, face masks, gaiters, shirts, and tank tops. The link is pinned at the top of the comment section. Everything is always marked down 20%. So come check out our junk.
This has been a Sawdust production.